Doge is gone already. Like literally shrugged and just doesn't exist anymore. Just like that. I'm reading the article. Doge doesn't exist with 8 months left on its charter by Reuters, and I'll leave a link in the description for you to check this out. But US President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency has disbanded with 8 months left to its mandate, ending an initiative launched with fanfare as a symbol of Trump's pledge to slash the government's size, but which critics say delivered few measurable savings. That doesn't exist, OPM Director Scott Kapoor told Reuters earlier this month when asked about Doge's status. All right, 8 months before this thing is supposed to end, it's already over. And I remember because I was having conversations with, I'm not even going to say who, but I was just like, you really thought that Doge was about to do something? Like, because be honest, if you stepped back from the noise and actually looked at what Doge actually was, it was never giving reform. It was giving vibes. It was a performance. Dude brought out chainsaws and music and lights. It was all emotional, and that was the strategy. But people were really out here defending it like it was about to revolutionize the entire system. Telling people to just wait and see till Doge gets in there, till Elon gets in there, like this efficiency pill was a pill that we could take and everything was going to be better. And, we waited, we saw, and what we see now is this doesn't even exist anymore. That was the quote. It doesn't exist anymore. Just a shrug, like you can't make this up. Okay, but I'm not like trying to make a takedown video here or to like drag anybody or anything like that. But, this is kind of funny, but it's also like kind of sad at the same time. And Doge is what happens when you let people sell you intensity. When you don't look for clarity and you just go off of vibes. And like, I wish that more people would see this in a lot of different settings, not just the government. I think about relationships. You're going off of emotions instead of information. You're listening to the story but tell me the strategy. And, we've all been a victim of this at some point, like if we're being honest. But from the beginning, from the moment it launched, like Doge was pure, emotional, provoking. It wasn't, here's the clear framework of how I'm going to do this. It wasn't, here's how we're going to actually measure our impact. There was no timeline. There was no process, none of that. It was just chainsaws and shock language and massive savings overnight that we saw many times were not even real. Like, were just typos that they just act like we didn't see. Big disruption, big energy, big action, but like actually none of that happened. It's like if you could just take some pre-workout before your workout and just be all hype, like that's all that this was, but then they actually just didn't even lift no weights, didn't even put the work in. And like, here's the thing, emotional intensity makes people feel like something important is happening, even though nothing is happening. Emotional intensity gives the illusion of progress. I don't know who that's for, but when there's a lot of feelings, it gives the illusion that something is happening. The illusion of control, the illusion of competence, the illusion of whatever can be sold to you by making you feel something. And people a lot of the times don't stop and actually ask when there's a lot of emotions and theatrics going on, like what's going on here? What's the plan? Who's tracking this? Does any of this make sense? And honestly, it can get a little bit under my skin sometimes when I get super excited and I'm all in my emotions. And, my wife will sometimes ask me, some of those clarifying questions, but it's because she gets this, what I'm talking about right now on some level. And, she does let me dream. But like, this is real, like what's actually going on here? We have to be willing to look at it and ask. But a lot of people did get swept up in the performance. Unfortunately, even some people that I know got swept up in the performance. And, this is what happened with Doge. It was pure hype. Hype always expires. There's always an expiration date on hype. Anytime you've seen hype around anything, does it not expire? It's going to be the same thing with this. And when the vibes died down, when the emotions died down, there was absolutely nothing underneath it. No accountability, no measurable outcomes, just evaporated. Evaporated. And I do find like this whole thing slightly funny. Just think about it. A department built on efficiency couldn't even make it to the end. Like, it couldn't even fulfill its bare minimum viable mandate of existing for a certain amount of time. But like, I want to have another conversation around, like, listen, when someone needs you to feel something instead of understanding something, they're not leading you. They are manipulating you. Emotion is powerful, and that's why marketers use it. People use it. These are just really good marketers. You can get whole crowds fired up by sounding bold. You can get people defending ideas they've never even really thought about or looked at just because they felt activated by the messaging. And some people weaponize this, unfortunately. A lot of people weaponize this. We all get we've all felt this. This happens with advertising. This is how you get people to move and do things you want them to do. And that's all DOGE was. Like, it was just a stimulus to create a response in people. But you need to follow substance. We have to follow substance. That's what it comes down to. But like, this whole department collapsed, and they were trying to do it quietly. They were trying to do it quietly, where you have people that were trying to argue like how it's going to be this most transformational thing, and they just disappeared. So I don't know. When I'm reading this article, I'm honestly like not really surprised at all, but like, it really is easy to get swept up in the emotional momentum, and I need you to stay grounded. We all have to stay grounded, because like, if we're honest, we've all done this in some area of life. Like, maybe there was a relationship that felt super powerful and super great in the moment, but there was no foundation. There was no vision. Or maybe you took a job opportunity that looked super exciting and looked super promising, but didn't ask enough questions. We've all kind of been there. And this is what DOGE represents to me. Emotion first, and then reality eventually shows that it was nothing. It was nothing. And just know that, like, if you're getting deep in your feelings, you're probably not accessing clarity, and hype is not a plan. And when someone tries to move you through shock value, through, big emotion, big chainsaw, high volume, slow down, ask questions, check the foundation. Look for the receipts. Look for the plan behind the performance. And this is really the irony that kind of gets me with this, because the people that bought into this whole DOGE thing and this whole administration love saying facts don't care about feelings, F your feelings, right? All that stuff. But they were the ones who got finessed and are the ones who were emotionally attached to DOGE when you tried to show them the reality. DOGE was not facts. DOGE was not data. DOGE had no plan. It was pure emotion. Revenge on the man, the guy, the whoever. Whatever they were projecting onto this, it was all feelings. It was all feelings. Very loud feelings. And that's the part that I hope at least one person who bought into this is willing to sit with. But also just, keeping it real that we've all been swept up in our feelings at some point. But like, here's the thing. Everybody thinks that they're immune to emotional manipulation because they're logical or because they just trust the facts. But the people who think that they're the most logical are often the easiest to manipulate and move, because they don't notice when something is hitting their emotional wiring because they're disconnected from their emotions. But there's no such thing as a logical person. That's like the thing. That's like, I don't know, I guess that's like one of the main points that I want to make. Okay, this whole thing fell apart because it never had legs to stand on. It was just a story that some people believed. It was just vibes that some people, bought into because the emotional pitch was really strong. Okay, but now it's like, it was literally just a shrug, like, yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. People really thought that this was gonna be something. But like, this is just the perfect example of why you can't let emotions, emotional energy, vibes be your only evidence. Anyways, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? Let me know.